There is so much disinformation out there right now being put out by the media. It's hard to know where to begin to figure out what's the most important thing to talk about. So we're going to talk about a couple different things today. Ebola, Venezuela, um, a story out of Indiana that should make every single person in Indiana lose their mind. And this general idea that the media gives you limited information that is contextualized in a way to make you feel something, not think something, feel something. But the trick is making you believe that you're thinking when you're feeling. And that's a tough dance to do, but they're getting good at it. Now, without any further delay, let's go ahead and start here. 49 Ebola, quote unquote, false alarms in the USA since 2018. Wait until you see this. Ebola testing with or quick Ebola rapid antigen testing explained. All right, now they have kind of a typo here. A new health advisory was published by it should say Health Alert Network, with updated guidance regarding the usage of a new rapid diagnostic test, RDT, for detecting the Ebola virus in symptomatic patients. Symptomatic patients, remember that. Published on December 16, 2019, this CDC health advisory says healthcare providers caring for a patient with possible Ebola virus infection should first contact their local or state public health authorities before any testing is performed. Really? That's interesting. So they have to contact state authorities first before testing. Furthermore, RDTs should be used only in cases where more sensitive molecular testing is not available. And, quote unquote, the interpretation of RDT results should be done with caution and in consultation with relevant public health authorities to ensure appropriate testing and interpretation of results. Now, you ready for this? In Health Advisory number 423, the CDC says there have been 49 travelers since August of 2018 who were ill when returning to the USA from the DRC or the surrounding African countries. You ready for this? Of these 49 individuals, testing for Ebola was recommended for just one person. That's right. We had 48 people come back from the DRC complaining of feeling ill, complaining of being sick, an area that is having this huge outbreak of Ebola. And guess what our authorities came to the conclusion was the smartest response? Let's only test one. Let's not test everybody just to be sure to rule it out. Nope. Let's just test one. Oh, by the way, and that one, boy, he only had malaria. Responding and reacting to something like that, once you read it, clearly is going to put you in an emotional state. And maybe in this particular case, you should be. But for a minute, and then maybe stop and go, wait, why didn't they just test everybody? You see, this is what I have been trying to put out about this thing with Ebola that a lot of people don't understand. There could be Ebola running around our country all over the place. If they don't test for it, they don't have to report it. You see, that's the point. You make this assumption that they give a damn, and all the people that come and say that I'm fear-mongering about this are saying, well, there hasn't been any reports of Ebola anywhere. Yes, that's right. No, quote-unquote, giant air quotes, capital letters, reports of. If they don't test for it, they don't have to report it. Handy dandy. Easy way to... And like I said, every time somebody comes in who's sick somewhere, unless they specifically test for it, they can't diagnose it. It's not like they can just take your blood, put it in a vial, and put it into some Star Trekian kind of machine, and it just comes back, oh, yep, this has Ebola, or this has malaria, or this has whatever. There are specific tests for specific things, and if you don't test for it, you won't find it. And oh, by the way, measles, measles. Democratic Republic of Congo measles, more than 6,000 dead in world's worst outbreak. Yet, number of U.S. measles cases in 2019, highest in decades. Imagine the coincidence. What an incredible coincidence. We're having the greatest outbreak of measles ever in the DRC and the United States at the same time. How could that possibly be? We have the world's best healthcare. They have literally the world's worst. Yet here we are. I would like somebody to explain that to me, please. Now, of course, that would be evidence of evil, terrible, horrible socialism, wouldn't it? Why do I say that? Well, you see, the vast majority of state budgets around the country, I guess would be the best way to put that, deal with socialist type things. Now, I brought up, this is public information, Florida Association of Counties, 2019 state budget for Florida. And if you go down and you look at what is the number one spending category, health and human services. But wait a minute, I thought Florida wasn't socialist. I mean, that is where the current leader is from, right? Oh, education is 28.47, and natural resources and the environment is 16.72. So when you add all that up, let's see, that is 69, 70, 86, almost 87% of every dollar paid in taxes in Florida goes to evil, terrible, horrible socialist things. The biggest category being health and human services. Now, people of Indiana. This is one of those states that prides itself on being a corporatist's paradise. Indiana records a $100 million annual surplus budget reserve, nearly 1.8 billion people. Now, all of those that are current fans of the current leadership would go, yep, that's right, that's what happens when you put business in charge, that's awesome, that's fantastic. Really? That's fantastic. Really? That's super fantastic, huh? So let me get this straight. Indiana is holding $1.8 billion of money that really belongs to the citizens of the state of Indiana. Now, when you divide that up, when you divide that 1.8 billion by the amount of taxpayers, which in Indiana is about 2.7 million, it comes out to 600 and something odd bucks and change. Yeah, here it is. 1.8 billion surplus, 2.7 million taxpayers. 666.66666 repeating. Now, do you know what the gut punch part of that is, people of Indiana? In 2014, the Indiana State Legislature passed a law that cut the corporate income tax from 8.5 to 6.25. Yep, that's right. They are taxing corporations 2%, 2.25% less, while holding $700 of your money in their accounts in surplus. I wonder what someone in the state of Indiana could do with a free $700 check right now. And this is all public information. I'll link it. You can look it up for yourself. Do the math for yourself. See, there's this story out here. This is another one of those hit pieces about the collapse of Venezuela and all this kind of stuff. And written into its subtext is the implicit idea that the reason for the suffering is socialism. Because, of course, that's what Mark Levin and Mark Savage and Rush Limbaugh and Bill O'Reilly and Sean Hannity and all these other people have been telling you is the cause of all of the world's evils, no matter what. See, they go out into these very rural areas of Venezuela where there aren't giant shopping malls, where there's not places. It's just not like what we would think of as suburbia. These people live much like North Americans lived 100, 150 years ago. And while a lot of people like to romanticize that, it's not all that romantic when you look at it up close. You know, it's kind of an existence where, you know, people bathe when they can. Sometimes they bathe in rivers, sometimes they have soap, sometimes they don't. You know, that's just kind of always, rural Colombia is that way, rural Brazil is that way. But of course they go out to these places and they find these pictures here, and this is Wall Street Journal, and they show these little one-room schoolhouses, and they try to blame this all. They don't show it in context. They don't say, here's what it was before, blah, 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 2013, and here's what it is after. They just show this, and they make you do the mental leap that at one time, people were living out here in the rural parts of South America differently, when they weren't. One of the things that, and this was a long time ago, that Chavez banned golf. Now, a lot of people would then make, oh, so he doesn't want anybody having any enjoyment or enjoying life. No. Golf is incredibly wasteful. It's a rich person's sport. It takes drinking water and waters grass with it in vast quantities. That's something else that a lot of people don't think about, too, with all the golf courses all over North America. It's like, really? Is that what we want to waste our fresh water resources on? I mean, they're everywhere in Florida. In fact, it's gotten so bad now that there's areas that have to water with water reclaimed from sewers, live sewers, and you can smell it in certain areas. There's parts of Jacksonville that you can't drive through in the morning because of the smell. It's so bad. Because of all of the reclaimed water from sewer systems that they're using to, you know, water lawns and keep the golf courses green. It's nauseating. It really is. And the leader of Venezuela, Chavez, banned this practice. He called it bourgeoisie. And it was something that, it was this rich, wasteful, all about me kind of attitude. And, you know, people are like, what? How are you tying all this together? The people of Indiana think things are great because they have this huge budget surplus, not realizing they're being robbed. Not realizing that they could have a check right now for nearly $700. And that money could easily be made up by the corporations, just restoring the corporate tax rate back to what it was in 2014. It would be a wash. But of course, they're not going to tell you that, are they, people of Indiana? And then we have this idea here in Florida that, you know, because this is where Trump is from and so wealthy, that clearly this must be some capitalist paradise. When you look at our budget, 85% of it is meant for education, health and human services, and taking care of the environment. As it should be. You know what? And if you want to have a golf course, that's fine. Don't use public water. Don't use public water resources. You know, build your own infrastructure. You watch how fast the golf courses in this country would dry up if they were forced to build their own infrastructure to water that, or how expensive golf would become all of a sudden. It'd be untenable. And that's why it was banned here. So I guess like, the moral of the whole video is this, is that, sometimes you see things and you make assumptions about what's written into it when you don't really understand what's being said. And the media is very good at this. They do it in the case of Ebola. They do it in the case with the people of the state of Indiana and here in Florida as well. You can see the pattern that if we don't test for Ebola, we don't have any Ebola cases. See what they did there? Anyway, I'll leave it there. Like, share, subscribe.